Welcome to Mac and Blue, the cutting-edge podcast for the nation's builders, merging the realms of construction with exciting advancements in technology. Join us on a thrilling journey where we delve into the dynamic world of blockchain, AI, the metaverse, virtual and augmented reality, and their transformative impact on the industry. Our engaging discussions span a wide spectrum, covering not only construction, economic development, supply chain, and market segments, but also exploring the vibrant tapestry of diversity within the construction landscape. We shed light on the intersection of local politics and its profound influence on the construction sector, while championing the remarkable contributions of women and minorities in construction. For all things Mac and Blue, head to www.macandblue.com, and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. I'm your host, JJ Levinsky. Now let's get into it. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Mac and Blue. I'm your host, JJ Levinsky, president and co-founder of Blue Wave. I'm lucky enough to have Eric Orsborn on today, who is not only the mayor of Buckeye, but he's also the founder and owner of OCM, which is a construction and maintenance company, which we'll get into all the fun stuff. But before I do, just a polite reminder that our quasi-sponsors are Red Team, Construction Software, and Service Titan. And there will be links throughout when we post to go in and look at their system. So again, Red Team and Service Titan. So thank you for both of our sponsors. Eric, welcome.
Thank you.
I'll try not to embarrass you today.
Okay,
I promise.
Good.
So before we get into all the fun stuff about Buckeye and your company, the audience always likes to know a little bit just about you, background, kind of, were you a native, all that kind of fun, happy stuff. So if you would, just share a little bit about I don't want your resume, but, just a humble, more pragmatic approach to who you are and why the heck are we sitting here today?
Right. Well, I don't know.
We'll
find out by the
I
end
paid
of this.
I paid him a lot of money. So go ahead.
Arizona native.
Yep.
I grew up in Glendale and went to Independence High School and then on to Glendale Community College and to ASU studying construction management.
So you were back in Glendale when it was farm fields.
A lot of farm fields. That's exactly right. Long before, I graduated high school in 90. So back when it was basically farm fields and no stadiums, no 101, no any of that stuff west of us. We were kind of at the edge of civilization. And then went on to ASU study construction management, met my wife, and we moved out to Avondale, worked for big, heavy civil contractors doing water, wastewater treatment plants and big infrastructure projects. Went to work for the contractor that was building the Verrado Way interchange, and I got to know the developer, DMB, and then went to work for them after a brief stint building the Hoover Dam bypass.
You were up on that project.
I was up on that project, yeah. The Arizona approach to the Hoover Dam bypass.
That had been kind of cool.
It was pretty awesome. That's big construction. Yeah. And
how long were you there?
Only a few months.
Okay.
And then I backed out. We had young kids at the time, and it was an out-of-town job, and my wife said, hey, we need to figure out something else here. Having a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old at that time.
Yeah.
She was not excited about me being out of town all week. So went to work for the developer of Verrado, DMB, and stayed there for about 6 years. That was in 2003. I was with them till about 2008, 2009 timeframe. It was awesome opportunity, great company. Thought I would spend the rest of my career there. And then this little recession hits, and we're not
the little one.
We're not developing much land at that point, and I got clipped in that recession, and then ended up starting my own company after that.
Was that the OCM then?
That was OCM. Yeah.
Okay.
Soon after leaving there.
Nice. Let me take a couple tangents. You said a couple things. Because we're basically the same age, I can think of a lot of the people that are CEOs, presidents, vice presidents of construction companies in town.
Yeah.
We're all about the same age, so those classes that came out about our age and younger.
Yeah.
There's a lot of powerful figureheads in town that are very construction centric. So that fraternity and sorority of people. How do I say this? It's nice because every time I meet, because I'm not a native, I came here 11 years ago, but every time I meet someone like you, it's like, wow, that group stayed, a lot of them stayed close and ended up running a lot of the companies in town. So you get to still see a lot of these people.
Yeah, you do. You still interact with people that you went to school with.
Right.
Some of the folks that I hired into some of those construction companies, maybe out of ASU or NAU, are now running companies or running divisions for companies. And it's pretty cool to look back and see the group that was coming out at that time, what they've been able to accomplish.
What I'll go on a bunch of. I got to go down the personal side for a second. So you're an active pilot.
I am, yeah.
How did you get into aviation?
Always have loved aviation, and thought at some point there's an opportunity that I would become a pilot, but it's very expensive, and all you hear about in the news is plane crash after plane crash. And so, not wanting to orphan kids and widow a wife, we got to a point later.
Maybe I should talk to your wife and her insurance guy and find out what the real
right. Here we got the right insurance.
Okay,
so now I'm able to fly. I always thought that it would be really, really cool to do that, but never really pursued that. And having been around, I was a honorary commander with a fighter squadron at Luke. As part of my time in DMB, they were very philanthropic. I got to be an honorary commander with the 63rd Fighter Squadron at Luke Air Force Base Panthers, and you have to get the Panther paws up when we talk about them. It was so awesome. So being around pilots and having neighbors that are pilots, both commercial pilots and fighter pilots at Luke, just got more and more interesting, and you hear their lingo and what they're talking. And my wife and I had attended a Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association fly-in in Prescott. This was back in 15 or 16.
Okay.
And then thought, this is really cool. We may have an opportunity for this. Our kids are getting a little bit older. We have a little bit of income that, maybe we can put toward pilot's license and training and such. And then we left that and went to another fly-in that was in Mesa at the time. And you get to see and talk to and smell and interact with pilots, and you leave there thinking, you know what, I can do this. So my wife and I both left that day, went to Goodyear and signed up for lessons with Greg Porter at Fly Goodyear.
So you're both pilots.
She started through the training and then stopped midway through, and I continued through, and I became a pilot in 2017.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So now, for all the aviation aficionados out there, what's your toys? What do you fly?
So we started with a 172, Cessna 172 that we bought in Virginia, and actually flew it all the way back. I flew it with the owner back here to Buckeye, and that was awesome. But my wife and I started taking family trips to meet or to connect with family in Shreveport, Louisiana, and a 9.5-hour flight one way with 2 fuel stops and what feels like a Volkswagen Bug, comfort wise, wasn't working. And one day we're on our way back, and she said, I don't want to do this anymore. And I said, no, wait, we still need to fly it. So the plan was always that I would get that plane, get my instrument rating in it, and then roll it into a flight school. So we never thought that we would have a plane quite as Gucci as what we got, but we ended up, a friend had a Cirrus SR-22, and he said, hey, I'm getting toward the end of my flying career, and sounds like you guys are wanting to move up plane. This would be a great plane for you. So we purchased that plane from him 2.5 years ago.
Nice.
We have the 172 that's in the flight school at Goodyear, leased back, and then we have this SR-22, which is that's a get there plane, and it's comfortable, and that 9-ish hours of flight time to Shreveport, Louisiana is now 5.5 with 1 fuel stop. It's like riding in a Porsche. It's super comfortable.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Well, again, I had to take you down that path because everyone loves a good aviation story. Yeah. So thanks for sharing.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go back before we get into all the Buckeye fun stuff. How do we cross contaminate and get into where we got to meet? Excuse me. Is talk to me a little bit about what was the impetus behind starting your own company at OCM? Like, where were you at in life, and just kind of what was that leap of faith?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Or did your wife force you into that one?
No. I loved working for DMB and building Verrado. And when everyone went through the recession, it was the end of the world. And so any construction, development, everything that was right up my alley, no one was hiring for that type of work.
Oh,
DMB still needed people to do the work that we all did when we worked for him. I was a project manager in land development and spent some time as a superintendent for him in land development. And so we just slowly began to do some of that work that we used to, but on a contract basis. And that just steadily grew into a little bit more and a little bit more. We were doing some land development work for him, contracting out most of that. And then we slowly became more of a self-perform type organization where, a general engineering license, we can build just about anything. We have the KB1 dual residential, commercial. So from a license perspective, we're licensed to do just about anything. And we started taking on some of this work landscape projects, and then just built up a landscape division with the amount of work that we had, commercial landscape construction. So we do work for general contractors, building school landscape all over the place, and we're doing streetscapes for developers and parks for developers, and then work direct for cities, and that's a lot of fun. And then the other big half of the company is demolition, where we do from full site demo, tearing down entire buildings, or select demo in renovations.
Which is how we met originally, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I never ever thought I'd own my own company, but you kind of got to a point where there weren't any other options. I was doing just to survive handyman type work, and then you start to see these opportunities just develop with D&B. Never thought it would turn into a landscape and a demolition company, and then here we are. That was in 2011, so many years later.
You survived.
I survived, right? Yeah.
You beat the odds.
Yeah, right. Somebody told me, I think most businesses go out of business within 3 years or something like that, and
then it's even a scarier statistic. The next 5 years, it's even this.
Yes.
10, it's It's like, might as well go play the lottery. You probably have a better chance.
Right.
Yeah.
Some jobs I feel like that.
Yeah. Well, we've all been there, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We have the war scores or war scars to prove it.
Wounds, yeah.
Okay. We'll just keep going down these things, and we'll bring it all in myriad that is in the discussion. All right. So, how in the heck did you get into public service? Because you've been the mayor now. You were elected in 2020.
That's correct. Yeah. And I've been, I was on council from 2010 to 2020.
Oh, so you had plenty of experience.
So plenty of experience in it, but I never thinking that I'd own my own business. I never, ever thought I'd be an elected official.
Right.
Ever.
Did he say ever?
Ever. And
so what happened? Tell us the story.
So
there comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Blue Wave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Blue Wave to get it done right the first time.
we want you, and I think this was 2007, to go to the city's first Buckeye Leadership Academy.
Mm-hmm.
And from a development perspective, I knew how to entitle lots. I knew construction, how to design and construct infrastructure. We interacted with the city quite a bit on that stuff, but you don't get the behind-the-scenes look that you do with the police, the fire, the attorney's office, the public works, the parks and rec and community services. So you go through that and you get to the end of that class, and this is in 2007 in Buckeye, and they said, now we want you to get involved. You can get on a board or commission, you can run for office, and Buckeye was very, very different at that time.
I was just going to ask you, like, what is that, 17 years ago?
Yes.
What was Buckeye, what was it like back then?
So rapidly growing.
Because Verrado was built or
Verrado
developed.
Was developed. Yeah, the beginning.
The beginning of it
opened in 2003, and we fun fact, we're the first residential family, first residents in Verrado.
You are
in a home. Yeah, my wife and kids and I.
So you were the guinea pig.
We were the guinea pigs. Yeah, I remember moving in there, and it was it was a big bite to buy a home in there. Very expensive.
Yeah.
We got to buy before the lottery, and our home and our neighbor's home just started off much quicker than the rest. And we got to a point where they called and said, "Hey, we're going to close you at 9:00 on such and such date." And we said, "Yes." And they called my neighbor and they said, "Hey, we're going to close you at 11." And we said, "Well, then we're number one. We're first." And they called us back and said, "Hey, there's some problem with your paperwork. We could close you at 1:00. And I went, "No, you can't do that." But they ended up, we both closed that same day. We moved in that night, so we claimed number one. And anyway, that story.
That was our tangent, but yes.
Tangent.
Okay. So back to
Buckeye at that time was just constant infighting on council. They were on their.
Can I ask why, or what's the word, the dichotomy?
Yeah, I think different
farmers against industrial, or was it different than that?
At that time, it was a small business owner, was a plumber, a small business owner that was an insulation guy, a bookkeeper, a farmer, I think a policeman, a fireman, and a veterinarian.
Okay.
And so all good folks, some just different levels of professionalism than others. And one in particular that just had different ideas about the way things should be going. So constant infighting, and we're always in the paper for one goofy thing after another. We had a city manager the 3 city managers in 5 years in that time leading up to 2008, where the last one was, no kidding, arrested at some sex shop or something like that in Phoenix. Just weird news all the time, like that coming out of the city. And
so Buckeye had the news that you didn't want.
That's exactly right. And it was constant drama. My predecessor was censored for misbehaving, and so I had people approach me and say, "You should really consider running for council." I said, "There's no way I'm running for council and getting involved in that show." And they said, "Well, think about it. Here's your background and what you'd bring to the table."
Yeah.
And I think at that time I'd already been clipped from D&B in the recession. Okay. This was in like 2009.
But you've been on committees and stuff.
Not
really.
Not
yet. Okay.
No, not at the city.
Okay, got it.
Helping with other things and being involved in community and that sort of thing.
More philanthropic and community based. Okay, got it.
So we get to a point where they just keep asking you, here's the background you have, big budget.
We're going to pressure Eric. Come on, Eric.
It was like peer pressure. And it was our previous mayor Meck, who I absolutely love. He came and said, here's what you'd bring. And then Karen Taylor Robeson had approached me, and she said, if good people don't stand up and do something, evil will prevail. I'm like, gosh, stop that. And so eventually my wife and I talked about, you only needed, I think it was 60 signatures to get on the ballot.
You had that many family members?
Yeah, right. And it was pretty easy because, like I said, the council member before me, my predecessor, was not behaving well. So we ended up getting on the ballot, and I remember we turned in the packet that night. We're watching the 10 o'clock news, and my opponent is getting ripped on the 10 o'clock news about his behavior. You can go Google it.
We trust you.
It's drama and unnecessary drama. And so I just turned to my wife. I said, "What did we get into? This is crazy." So we end up smoking him in the election, and then I'm from 2010 to 2020 council member / vice mayor several times during that time frame.
Oh,
and it was good. I wasn't misbehaving, so I didn't bring that with me. And I have an ability to take some very complex things and explain it to like my mom or my grandparents.
Which makes you popular with the constituents.
Yes, yeah, and helping them understand here's why decisions are made, and then in turn take what the public is saying and then explain that in technical terms to staff, and treat people with respect, and I guess the personality for it, and then so it just collect in those 20 or 10 years. And then
so from like just a purely civics standpoint, Eric, during those 10 years, because we're leading up to, massive growth in the conversation that we're going to go into in a little bit. But when you were on council, vice mayor, all those things, again, back to the civics question, was there any monumental or how do I say, foundational changes in Buckeye during that 10 years?
Yeah,
Can you talk to that?
2010 election kind of flipped the script, and it was almost overnight. We became more professional, hired in professional city manager who did not want the drama of years past.
Yeah.
And so we all kind of made a pact that we were going to stay out of the news for bad news and only have positive messages coming out of the city of Buckeye. And it wasn't that we were, hiding the bad news or those sorts of things. We were just treating people with more respect and making better decisions in that time frame. And I think that was a significant change where we started bringing in, growing by leaps and bounds. So you're getting more staff that's coming in, but the caliber of staff members that we were bringing in, it completely changed. And you stop being in the newspaper for crazy stuff, and now you're in the newspaper for some really positive things that are taking place in the city of Buckeye.
So then what happened in 2020 then?
So 2019, our previous mayor said, I am going to, I'm going to retire and you should be mayor. And I said, there is no way I'm going to be mayor.
Back to Eric, and it's never, no way, never.
Right. Never say never. Right. So he says, no, I mean, think about it. You've got the background, you have the relationships with the community, with the clients that we have, the developers, the businesses, and he said you'd do really well at this. And so in 2020, same thing. We ran unopposed, actually, which is awesome. I tell people all the time, if you're ever considering running for elected office, I highly recommend running unopposed. So we did at that time, and in fact, we're running unopposed again right now, which is
Eric's now adjunct professor for political science at ASU.
Yeah, that's right. And that's all you need to know. Just run unopposed.
Just run on Eric's simple model.
Yeah, that's all right. So we ran again in 2020, and it's been right place, right time, because we've done a lot of stuff over the last 10, 15 years to really prep us for the growth that we're seeing in the city of Buckeye and the success that we're having right now.
Right. Well, congratulations. All right, now I get to nail you for all the tough stuff as mayor.
Okay.
Let's go back and before we got on the air, I always like to try to paint a picture for the audience, because for those people that don't know Buckeye, I remember when I moved here 11 years ago, it was like, that's somewhere up by Tonopah and Palo Verde and whatever. I mean, I knew what the farm fields and everything. But just defining it from a geographical standpoint, we had Heath on with Howard Hughes before, Teravalis, and, the White Tanks kind of split Buckeye.
Yeah.
And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's still a lot of islands within, if we look at the whole planning and zoning, you're kind of a hodgepodge. I don't mean it in a negative way.
Yeah.
It's kind of cut up, is it not?
It is to an extent. And even to go back further,
go ahead.
Growing up here in the West Valley, Dad would drive us to Disneyland.
Yeah.
And all roads to California went through Buckeye. It was 85, and so I remember as a little kid driving through and getting to a blinking stoplights at, I think it was Oglesby, which is now State Route 85. And then you meandered your way out to eventually I-10, getting to California.
Yeah.
And we're kind of like the story of Cars, if you remember the kids' cartoon show, Radiator Springs, where everything went on Route 66 through Radiator Springs. They built the big fancy new freeway, I-10, several miles north, And now all that commerce coming through downtown Buckeye is outside of now.
Right.
So it starts to slow gradually. We've always been a wonderful farming community and ag-centric, but you lose out on a lot of that commerce that happens as people are driving through your community. And it moves up north to that I-10 area. And very, very small community. I think in the year 2000, we were about 6,500 in population. And in the late 90s and early 2000s, they went on this spree of annexing property. And it is kind of hodgepodge because there's some massive developments like Terra Vallis, which was Douglas Ranch and Trillium. That was one of those annexations. Sun Valley is one of those. Festival Ranch is one of those. Tartesso. And then there's a bunch of county space in between. And then when you get in south of I-10 into some of the old farm areas, there's quite a bit of...
But on the southern border, it's kind of the Gila River, the watershed kind of defines the southern border, does it not?
At least to 85. And then once you get to 85, our municipal planning area goes almost to Gila Bend.
Oh, it does.
And then it stretches almost to...
Wickenburg,
darn near Wickenburg, yeah.
I know. When you look at a map of Buckeye, it's like there's counties that are smaller than Buckeye.
You could take the Buckeye and turn it on its side, and the distance from the very south end to the north end stretches from, I think, our city hall to Mesa's city hall.
I was going to say, if it goes to AJ.
Darn near. Yeah. It is so stinking big, and then it stretches from about Perryville Road to basically the Hacienda in the south end, but quite a ways west and north.
So, Eric, you talked a little bit about that quilt work, if you will. For the layperson, then, is Buckeye then, is it mostly state or county land that are those islands? And if they are, then are you working hand in hand with them in what is the massive growth that is Buckeye now? Or is Buckeye is a long-term initiative more annexation? I think everyone would like to know, like, Eric, what is the long-term plan?
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Blue Wave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Blue Wave to get it done right the first time.
There's a massive amount that's already annexed, and size-wise, we're 640 square miles.
Okay.
And I think 340 or 350 of that is annexed in. There's a lot of those areas that eventually get annexed in, and we're not pushing just the acre lot person that's out there. We're not, we can't force them to annex in. It's completely up to them. But some of those larger properties, I can think of some of the dairies that are in the south areas that are currently county, that eventually when they go to developing, if they want city services, they have to annex into the city. So you'll see some of that stuff happen. And hopefully there's a lot of those areas that just stay as farm. And I mean, I think that's some of the appeal and beauty of Buckeye and some of that rural ag area.
Yeah.
But I tell folks all the time, I say, you're ruining our city by, turning all these farms into residential or industrial. I said, I don't own any of that.
Yeah.
And when that farmer decides to sell for an absolute mint, we have to manage that municipal use, and that's what's happening in these areas.
So let's jump right into that, Eric. What it's like, okay, you guys are kind of the gatekeeper on the west side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've got Goodyear and everyone else a little bit that are your neighbors and everything. And the 303 loop, of course, is, let's just talk about the obvious thing with the massive influx from California. You guys are kind of, hey, the first store that opens is Buckeye.
Right.
So you have, if I can just describe it, because I'm, us being in construction, I see you have tremendous intermodal potential because you have both rail and highway.
And an airport.
And some other things called pipelines and other things that are pretty close. And you've got a nuclear power plant that's not far away either. So when you take look at a lot of the infrastructure, you're very appealing for a lot of commerce as it comes from particularly California.
Correct.
So in that development, I think a lot of people would want to know, because this is where the news gets made, right? Hung or indifferent. All right, Eric, as more and more companies or developers are coming to you, or planning and zoning, or your city manager, the people that you're the mayor, but you're not, there's other departments that do a lot of this stuff.
Right.
What are the challenges that you're facing right now as far as when people want to come and develop, or, like you said, the dairy sells to XYZ company and they want to, take down 300-400 acres or something. What are those struggles and opportunities? Because it's not just bad, it's good too, that you guys are facing as a municipality right now.
It's really keeping up with the infrastructure to do that, both from a water sewer perspective, because it takes a long time to build that stuff out,
right?
From design all the way through, and then from a roadway and highway perspective, nothing builds quick in any of that. And I pull the rest of my hair out for stressing about that stuff. But it is so slow that comes along, and we are such a big area. It's hard to determine where first we're going to invest that money to really expedite that growth. And so as those folks come in, what we try and do is get these projects shovel ready and get developers. You'll see a lot of stuff that has popped up on Perryville at the very eastern edge, and that's kind of by design. What we did is approached, I went to those developers and said, how can we get you guys out of the ground? Because most of these companies that are coming in are wanting a site that is already built, a shell building, so they can move in direct and go to work.
Right.
Put their racking system in, or put their whatever they're building widgets, then put the
So primarily industrial manufacturing, distribution.
Yes. Yeah. All of that stuff. And so you've seen a lot of that stuff come out of the ground there. Part of that is because we're helping with some of the infrastructure and these public infrastructure reimbursement agreements. You're seeing on 85 some of that stuff coming our way because that land has gone from a residential use and a general plan amendment we did last year to now a industrial or employment use. Some of it is going to be distribution. Some of it in the form of core power is going to be the first American-owned, American-based lithium-ion battery cell manufacturer. 2 million square feet, I think ultimately $1 billion investment and 3,000 jobs right near the downtown area, which is incredibly exciting. That should kick off that sustainable green energy hopefully green energy manufacturing right here in the city of Buckeye. So that's really exciting. And then there are so many different things that go into building a city, not only the infrastructure needs for the industrial, but it's the housing needs. And you wouldn't think that would be an issue in a community that is the fastest growing city in the United States from a residential perspective, that population growth year over year. It becomes affordability. And there are there's a massive range of homes that exist in the city of Buckeye. From, you have the custom lots that are up in Verrado that are a couple $1 million, executive level housing, down to just the regular starter single family homes. But we have we haven't built multifamily in 20 years in the city of Buckeye until now, and we're starting to see some of those multifamily units come out of the ground to bring in that housing that's necessary for some of these jobs that are coming our way, so that we have enough affordable locations for people to get into, live in, and then begin to work their way up, building up that nest egg to where they can purchase a home, put the down payment on, and go.
You said a lot there, so I'm just going to keep peeling the onion.
Sorry.
Okay, no, don't be sorry. Okay, so let's talk about, you brought up 85. For those in the audience that don't know, it's the connector between the 10 and the 8.
Yes.
And so if you're going to California or anywhere, especially all the commerce that comes from Texas through Arizona, that either goes up to the 10 or through the 8 over to whether it's Southern or Central California, everyone knows that connector. And then, of course, it's been in the news for quite a few years. What is it going to be? What do they call it? The I-19?
I-11.
The I-11, the connector.
Yes.
Now, does that, in its master plan, doesn't that technically go through part of Buckeye?
It does. That 85 corridor is also I-11.
Right.
It comes up to 10. It's I-11 out to just past the Hacienda, and then the I-11 takes off north across desert to just west of Wickenburg, and it ties into the 93.
So, I mean, just high level, Eric, is that still 10 years in the making, 15 years in the making, or is it closer than that?
Yeah. I don't know. The way we're throwing around money from D.C., maybe there's opportunities closer than that, but there's still a phase 2 environmental that needs to get done.
Got it.
That I think ADOT has the monies for, but it's going to take a bit to get that done. And then I think the way that's going to build is probably in small bite-sized.
Yeah, I would imagine.
So what we're lobbying for is a prime location to build is that 85 corridor. Let's turn that into the first chunk of I-11 that is really built out within the state. And then that solves a couple problems at once. You have a massive amount of development that's coming in that corridor. We need the infrastructure developed on 85. The funding is not there for it. Maybe there's some federal opportunities.
So would it be like from the river all the way to the 10?
Yeah, that
would be the core chunk.
An appropriate chunk.
Yeah.
There,
Okay. So thank you for answering number one, because a lot of people, there's a lot of people that love that route for connection.
And that we think that's the next 303 corridor. If you look,
it will be
down 303.
It will be
just a massive amount of commerce and manufacturing and distribution that is going to begin to move out to the Buckeye area.
Okay, so with that, now I get to take the contrarian or antagonist viewpoint and go, all right, Eric, all that growth is good. You're the next this, you're the next that. How are you managing your water? Because, you always get posed to that. Now, I will preface this, that having sat on a number of forums and things, you're in a unique position because, and maybe you can support the math, is, again, for the layperson out there, and this isn't to be judge or jury, but, hey, farming, even though it's a pivotal, one of the main C's that developed Arizona, things change and evolve. Yeah. And for every acre feet of water that used to go into just flood irrigation, which is yes, it's sacred to a lot of cowboys and a lot of landowners here, but at the same token, an acre taken out of production of ag in Arizona versus put into development, no matter what that is, whatever that plan and zoning is, we actually are potentially conserving water in the long term.
That's correct. Yeah.
So as a mayor, speak to that, because I'm sure you get the question all the time. Well, great, Eric, more development. How are we handling our water issue?
Yeah. So no different than we as a region have handled our water for the last, 60, 70, 80 years. Near term, we are looking at other waters to fill that portfolio. Some of that may be what they're calling farm to urban or ag to urban, which is where when a farmer does decide he's done farming in this area, the water that he uses can be turned to a municipal use, and then we can continue to pump that water in perpetuity for municipal uses. And it does save water. None of that to say that we're trying to push farming out,
right,
like we had talked about before.
But a farmer has every right to sell too.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. So that's a portion of potential water. We have 2 irrigation districts that serve both Buckeye Irrigation District and Roosevelt.
As you say, RWCD is out there as well. Yeah.
Yes, and both of them have some water allocation that eventually could be put toward municipal use. We are looking at purchasing water out of basins that are far west of us. The Harquahala Basin, for instance, we have $80 million in our budget to purchase about 6,000 acre-foot of water per year. That's about 18,000-ish homes of growth, and that works out. I'm going to do bad mayor math here on the fly, but about three-ish people per house. So quite a bit of population growth in just that, and there is a significant amount. That's probably about 10% of the water that exists out there.
Oh.
In the Harquahala Basin. there was a study that was released, and that's what I think some of this hubbub is about. It was January of last year is when the study was released by ADWR that said if you don't bring in new water resources, if you don't use your wastewater and recharge and make reuse of that, if you don't manage the basin, and if you don't enact conservation codes, and you build all of the stuff out that you're talking about in 85 years, with all this built out, the wells that are in high in the basins will begin to go dry. So you have an unmet demand, and we're saying, well, we're purchasing new water, we're managing the basin, we're not going to allow those wells to be developed up there, and we're enacting conservation codes. He probably talked about that at Teravalis, how efficient they're going to be on water, and we're reusing that wastewater and recharging that into the aquifers. So any one of those takes care of that unmet demand. And we're in discussions with the governor's office and ADWR about that right now. But just so that everyone's clear, everything that is developed right now has a 100-year supply, and there is no danger of running out of water. Everything that has received that certificate saying they're okay to build has a 100-year supply, and there's no danger. And the realities are they're talking about 85 years down the road having some unmet demand. And that's what we're solving for right now. And there are a lot of plans in place. There's a lot of opportunities for water in the portfolio. The discussion about raising the height of the Bartlett Dam to hold more water back in really wet years like last year. But we've done a really, really good job in Maricopa County in the state in general at managing water. You think of the CAP, they were sitting around in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s saying, how are we going to manage the growth that's moving forward? We're pumping so much water out of the ground that's not sustainable. And someone came up with an idea of building a 300-plus mile canal from Havasu through Phoenix down to Tucson. That's crazy. And biggest power user in the state. And that's what they built, and that's what's fueled the growth over the last 40 years. So now we're just trying to figure out what that next CAP-type canal.
Yeah, I think, again, I'm not here to be, I'm just the host and the moderator, but having sat across from a number of smart people to talk about it, yes, there's problems, there's challenges, like that's life.
That's right.
But again, with human ingenuity, technology, and technology and data and more data,
right,
we can do it. I mean, there's success stories already. To highlight a few, I know, like down in Maricopa, their aquifers are full on their recharging because they were so good at doing the gray water recycling that,
right,
again, this isn't to bash agriculture, but they were pumping out more than what they were putting in. And now that inverse kind of, I'm not saying that development for development's sake is great, but just like everything, take a pragmatic approach, take a long-term thing and knock off little pieces at a time.
That's right.
And then you ebb and you flow, and change is inevitable, right?
Right.
So as long as you can just kind of get behind it. But I think like you hit it on the nail on the head, Eric, is the strategic initiative and understanding your long-term CapEx, just like you were talking about with ADOT, is you're not going to build from Nogales to Vegas all in 1 year, right? You're going to have to take chunks, and eventually that whole thing will get built out. And it's the same with the city of Buckeye.
That's right. Yeah. We don't have to solve for all 120,000 acre foot of water per year today. That comes in time. So we'll look at the next 20 years, figure out how we procure that water for the next 20 years. And then, just like you said, baby steps, or eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Let me go down a couple other rabbit holes with you. One is what I call the downtown.
Yes.
The kind of the quintessential small town farming community downtown. What is the long-term plan? Is it going to be sacred? Is it going to be kept that way? Is it going to get all redeveloped? I mean, part of the charm of Buckeye is that. Yeah. So how do you guys plan for that long-term?
Yeah, we just completed our downtown specific area plan, our DSAP, and it was a planning exercise to say, this is what we have right now, and here's what we want to become long-term. And so we took field trips to Gilbert and looked at their downtown and said, this is really awesome, and we would love to have something along this line that is that has the new restaurants and new new retail that's coming in, the arts and entertainment.
Yeah.
But at the same time, really gives a nod to the history and the agriculture,
the farming,
that existed,
like the Agritopia, the farm to table type thing.
Exactly, stuff like that, and try and keep as much of the bones of the old building as we can, or buildings, and really recreate that downtown. We pour a lot of money into the downtown and revitalization, and we're redoing the street and downtown restriping to create one lane in each direction with a center turn lane and make parking more easily available on both sides, and begin to create that more walkable community. There's some really incredible shops and restaurants down there right now, which is really fun, and you start to see some, and there's more development that's coming our way. There's multifamily, which is going to bring a population. There's Core Power, which is going to bring 3,000 daytime jobs. There's Ross that brings 1,700 daytime jobs. And all of that synergy that's happening in that area should fuel some of this growth moving forward to bring those shops and restaurants, the small, like chef-owned type restaurants, or shops that are small shops, not big chains.
Yeah.
We're not looking for drive-throughs on the downtown core, but start to scale up a bit, and maybe it's shops underneath and residential up above or commercial up above.
A typical vertical integration.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, it gets down to return on investment for that land and that footprint.
Yeah.
Because it's still that sewer line that feeds that lot.
Yeah.
That water main and that sewer main gets a lot more expensive the further you go out, right?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, you have to build all that stuff in new, and in this case, it's really celebrating our heritage and reworking that downtown to create something really special.
What about and I just briefly touched on this before, but I know traffic and transportation is always a hard one to manage. Yeah, you're dealing with all sorts of different agencies and whatnot. Yeah. But, again, us being in the construction, I see a lot of companies that are going to your location because of the rail spurs. People forget rail still is some of the cheapest transportation out there. So for big companies, or not even big companies, just smart and nimble companies, rail is a very effective way to transport commodities.
Right.
So that's one. But are you? Will there be any, like in that long-term plan? Are there large arterial master plans, or do you think it'll stay more the fabric of what is Buckeye right now?
From a roadway perspective?
Yeah, or anything like that.
Yeah, so incredibly important, and every listener that is listening to this or watching this or however they're consuming.
Remember, Eric never says ever, never, ever, never.
Never. Yes. It is incredibly important that we are all paying attention to Prop 479, which is going to help by adding an additional lane on I-10. We actually have an appropriation from the state last year to add the HOV lane on I-10 from Saraville to 85.
That's state, not federal?
That's state.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Jackrabbit Trail interchange, we have a state appropriation for the design of that, which is going on right now. It is very important that we pass Prop 479 to help finish those two projects. Mm. In addition to that, and probably more importantly, long-term is State Route 30, which is the I-10 reliever. And that's going to be a parallel freeway that runs from 85 to 303, has an interchange there, and then 303 to 202, an interchange there, and then 202 connecting to the 17. Relieves that I-10 and helps to take some of that traffic congestion off, and also allows traffic to go from anything south of the 10 down to the State Route 30 east or west. It's a game changer for the entire West Valley moving forward. So it is incredibly important that we pass Prop 479, and that'll be on the ballot in November.
There's your call to action, everyone.
Call to action, absolutely.
I got to let Eric get his buy-in here, right. His chops out,
and that is
since he's running unopposed.
Unopposed, right? I got to run for something, right? So that's an incredibly important for the West Valley. But there are there are projects all over US 60 and 303, that interchange, getting that built out. The 24 in the Southeast Valley. There's a significant amount of transit and transportation projects, smart transportation projects. That is vital for us moving forward. That we extend that.
Whether it's you, any of the other mayors, or the economic development director people or that we've had on this show, it always comes up. And it's like, all right, who's getting this piece of the pie now?
Right.
But just like you said, everyone's kind of eating the same bites at the elephant. They're just starting at different ends, right?
Yeah.
In the short time that we have left, what other I kind of turn it over to you, Eric, what are some of the other calls to action or things that you'd like to highlight about Buckeye, or what you guys are trying to do as a municipality? It can be anything, like who are you looking for, or what initiatives do you have, or kind of what's on your, how can you represent you, the council, and all the employees at the city going, this is what we're looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so kind of backing up to bigger picture of Buckeye, it's going to be very easy to continue to grow residential long-term. And now we're having a really nice mix between single-family homes and the multifamily homes coming in those appropriate locations. And that'll just continue. And what has been really on our minds as a city and as a council over the last 10 years is bringing jobs to the community. Currently, 88% of our population drives east on I-10 to go to work. And that's not a good recipe for a healthy, balanced community. It also means that all of those people that are commuting are not coaching their kids' soccer games or baseball teams or engaging in some other extracurricular activity, or just being home.
Being present.
Present.
Yeah.
You work a full day and then you drive home looking into the sun all the way home. You're miserable, and it takes time to recoup from that. So it's bringing jobs into the community, and I think we're really hitting our stride. We've got about 6,500 jobs that we've created in the last couple of years. Some of that is the core power, some of that is Ross distribution, some of it is two hospitals. We're going to have dueling hospitals at Verrado and I-10, Banner on the north side and Abrazo on the south side. And that stuff starts to develop up. It's
like a piano bar.
It's like, it is, yeah. They'll be lobbing grenades across the I-10. And then it's bringing in the retail. We're so underserved in retail and restaurants, and that Verrado and I-10 area is an activity center. It's going to be the center of the universe for us here for a long time to come, with Vestar coming in, building a smaller version, but a version of Desert Ridge or Tempe Marketplace on the northeast side of I-10 and Verrado Way. We've got our first Costco at Verrado Way and I-10, and there's going to be more developing around the Costco and the restaurants that we're all looking for coming, not just fast food, but
community-based
restaurants and date night type restaurants and those things that we want to see moving forward.
What about, you talked about the medical a little bit. What about the other things as far as like schools, or even what you guys have to expand on for your own municipal infrastructure, fire stations and police, those kind of things are I know it's all calibrated into the pro forma, if you will.
Yeah.
But do you have, have you hit some of those points already?
We have, and we're building Station 707 right now that is under construction. I think is finished by maybe mid-25. So that's in the works, and then there are several other. There's actually a whole list of needs, and we had a bond committee who set up and has just finished their work, saying here are the different projects that are important to Buckeye today and as we grow into the future. And it's public safety. I think there's $130 million-ish worth of projects in public safety, and that includes fire stations. There's a couple of fire stations in it. There's a couple of police dispatch. There's headquarters for both police and fire. There's infrastructure work, mostly related to transportation. I think there's 160. Can't quote me on either of these.
Don't worry about it.
Somewhere in the...
They'll know you're a contractor, so numbers
that's right.
You're close enough.
It's about that.
It's the way Eric estimates, too, so don't worry.
Right, yeah. It's just about there.
$1.389.
$1.389. And so there are some key roads that we need to improve, some leading to downtown, some just fixing some of those traffic snarls that we have as growth comes in, and the areas where growth doesn't pay for growth are some of those tweeners. When you have a residential development that's 2 miles to the south and the freeway is to the north and there's nothing that's built in between, you have to figure out how to pay for that infrastructure in the meantime. So a lot of that stuff coming in a bond that will be given to the voters in November also in Buckeye. Very, very important for us moving forward. And then it's I tell people all the time, we'll have that residential growth, and if we 10 or 20 or 30 years from now end up just a sea of tile roofs, we have failed miserably as a city and as leaders going into this growth period. So it's bringing those jobs in, it's bringing those retail establishments that we want, those corners, the activity centers, and then it's making sure that we are taking care of the open spaces.
I was just going to ask, because you got to hit the argument is, well, geez, Eric, if everything's, what's the word, like homogenous, or like you said, no one wants that anymore.
Right. Yep.
That was the 1980s and 90s.
Right. We want something special to go to, not just the same thing over and over and over, the tract housing that just runs on the exact same forever. So we have a group called the White Tank Conservancy, and in our general plan, we call out these specific areas that we want to kind of keep sacred. The white tanks in the top of, we want to make sure that stays a growing or thriving, alive mountaintop. And to do that, you have to make these connections, we call it wildlife corridors, to other mountains so that the larger mammals can go back and forth and hunt in other areas. And Heath was great in that with Terravalis. They came in and said, yep, we see the vision and we want to keep these corridors separate.
Yeah, I remember we talked extensively about that. Yeah.
Fantastic. And it's so great to have a development partner that thinks like that. So you have that going out to the west and some of those real heavy development areas that are coming up. The Gila River corridor is going to be special moving forward. There's
I tell you, well, you brought it up, and you look at Tempe Marketplace.
Yeah.
Look at the transformation of and that whole corridor.
Yeah.
Look what Tempe did, right, wrong, or indifferent.
Yeah.
To create a waterway that was there, revitalize it.
Right.
I've been duck hunting down in your river bottoms with some friends.
Yep.
And I, as a Midwestern kid, I sat down here and said, do you know what a gold mine they're sitting on down here? And you have both of it. You have to protect it and develop it in the same thing. But there's so much that could be done with that.
Yeah.
That right, almost like a riparian area, if you want to call it.
That's exactly it. And we have 15 miles of that in the city of Buckeye. So another fun fact, I worked for the contractor and actually built the shoreline improvements.
Oh, really?
On Tempe Town Lake. And sitting out there at that time, you're building this stuff, and you're going, this is crazy. They're spending a crazy amount of money, and there's nothing here. And then you go back down there today and look at the development that's happened on both sides.
Well, and the usage, too.
And the usage, yeah. You have people out there. And
It's more than just the ROI from the numbers perspective. Look at, how did it impact society? Are they engaged? Everything that you were talking about.
Right.
Are there people out kayaking? Are they eating out on the verandas?
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
All those kind of things. So, no, I think you guys are sitting on, no pun intended, a gold mine out there. And
it's choked out right now by the salt cedars. So that's another thing that we have to get taken care of, because it's a fire issue, it's a flood issue, and they drink a lot of water.
Yeah.
So that 15 miles, what they're telling us is that there's somewhere between 30 and 50,000 acre feet a year that those salt cedars drink.
So again, you're a mayor amongst a bunch of other mayors that the Gila touches.
Yeah.
Or is that who's heading that up? Is that a state initiative, or is it more you as city leaders?
City leaders specific to the areas that touch ours, but there's a Gila River corridor initiative that is actually being run out of ASU's office. Senator McCain, when he was around, had started it, and he told Dr. Crow, I want you to help me develop this river. So there's a Gila River group, and the name is just spacing me right now, that are looking at from the area from Granite Reef Dam all the way out to 85 in Buckeye and creating this incredible recreation opportunity, that 50 plus miles that runs. So you could do, endurance races all the way across. You can have the very scaled up Tempe Town Lake area to the more
a little bit for everyone.
Ecological corridors, and that's a tremendous opportunity for all of us moving forward.
Yeah, and they could be a beacon for that area.
Yes.
There's no question. I mean, you look at other communities across the country that have done that, I don't think you find too many losers.
No.
Yeah. Eric, anything else that you can think of? Any other calls to your constituents other than voting, of course?
Yeah, vote.
Check the only box next to it.
The only box for mayor. You're also going to see another.
Pedro's a good write-in if you really are.
Vote for Pedro. Make all your dreams come true.
I had to get that in there.
Yes.
Sorry.
There's another initiative that is being put out by the Maricopa County Community Colleges District, and it is essentially allowing them to spend all of the revenues that come into the college district. Right now, they're bound by spending thresholds that were established back in the 1980s, kind of like the home rule that exists for cities. But in their case, they have to go to the state legislature every year to beg for the ability to spend all of the monies that come in. So the revenues are there. It's not a tax increase. It's just, can we please spend the revenues that we have? And it is so up and down at the legislature. What they're asking the voters to do is say, yes, you can spend the revenues that are coming into Maricopa County. So there's an initiative that's coming out, and I can get you some more details on that is very important, training up that workforce of the future for us at the Maricopa County Community Colleges level. It's incredibly important that we're training them up, both in the EVITs and the WestMecs that are out there, which are just awesome.
And we've highlighted a ton of that on this, as you can imagine, with the platform of this show. So.
Yeah, it is so incredibly important. And then having that from high school to training, maybe it's the first 2 years of college, but it's the community colleges that are incredibly important moving forward. So,
well, with that, we're going to end, but I will say that anyone that wants to get a hold of Eric, he's mayor of the city of Buckeye, but his staff, you can reach out to them.
Yes.
They have a very nice website. They're all listed there. You can get a hold of them. And just thanks again, Eric. So again, Eric Orsborn, mayor of Buckeye, thank you so much for coming on today.
It's a pleasure.
And I don't know where an hour went, but just encourage everyone that if you haven't been to Buckeye, go through it. It's no longer a bedroom community, but it has a feel for it. How's that?
That's very well said.
I'm not a marketing guy, but I love it over there.
Maybe you could start. Yeah.
Thanks again, Eric.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Mac and Blue Show, brought to you by Blue Wave General Contracting. Be sure to subscribe to the Mac and Blue podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Follow JJ Levinsky on LinkedIn and Instagram. Tune in every Monday